Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, episode 271. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman,
What's up, everybody?
Phil Dassing,
Hello, quarantine friends.
Kyle Wagner,
Hey guys.
and special guest Julie Borowski.
Hello.
Hey, Julie, thanks for coming on the podcast tonight. Everybody's like really psyched about this. For anybody who listening that might not know Julie, I mean, everybody should know Julie, but she's a longtime internet activist, quote unquote, celebritarian, content creator, children's book author. Yeah, she's been in the Liberty game for a long time, and we thank her for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, yeah. So like, how did you get into like libertarianism, and like, where did you come from? Did you come from like the right or the left?
Oh, I was a hardcore neocon in high school. I was a George W. Bush supporter. I wanted to nuke Iraq, Iran. I didn't know the difference between them, but I just wanted to nuke the entire Middle East. So I came from that perspective, believe it or not.
From the Kyle Wagner school of thought.
All right, yeah. So I came from the right. I was a hardcore Republican, like I said. And, it's interesting because my grandfather was a libertarian, but he never used the word. And he used to criticize Bush, and I used to be mad about that. And I was like, how could you criticize Bush? Like, he's a Republican, he's on our side. And I realized that my grandfather wasn't exactly a Republican. He was a libertarian, never used the word. But so I kind of got introduced that way. He talked about the government and, how the people should have freedom and liberty and all this stuff. And about how George W. Bush was kind of evil for going into the Middle East. And it really opened my eyes. But it wasn't until probably I was 15 that I first heard the word libertarian. And it was because I was trolling on internet forum back in the day, I guess 2004-ish. It was a website called buddypick.com, which still exists, but I trolled the forums there. And somebody said they were a libertarian. And I thought that meant like a super liberal person. Never heard the word. So I Googled it, and it said people who want maximum freedom. But at the time, as a Republican, I thought I was somebody who wanted maximum freedom. Like the left, they hate freedom. The right likes freedom. Very lacking critical thinking skills there. But I kind of Googled libertarianism, and I saw all this stuff about like drug use, and I was like, what? How do they support drug use? That's like for the left. And then I realized that they were coming at it from a free market capitalism perspective, which I was already support of. So I was like, okay. And I read more, and I really liked what they said. And I finally was like, okay, I'm a libertarian. And it wasn't until 2007 I saw Ron Paul, and I guess that's where it kind of took off, that I really wanted to get involved. And then I started a YouTube channel a couple years later, and blah, 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 blah.
So like, what was your first YouTube video, and what like prompted you to like create it? And like, did you just do like one video, or did you just decide like, oh man, I'm going to do a channel?
Okay, so I was working at this organization called Freedom Works in 2011. So I was an intern in DC. I was doing all these like libertarian free market think tank type of things. And one day, I was a big Ron Paul supporter, like I said, and everyone at my office knew that I was the Ron Paul person to go to about Ron Paul. And this news organization reached out to my boss. They said, hey, we want somebody to come on to talk about Ron Paul because he just announced he was running for president again. And my boss couldn't do it. He had another obligation. So he said, oh, hey, we have somebody here on our staff. Her name's Julie. She's a big Ron Paul supporter. Like, she could go on TV to talk about it. And my boss first asked me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been on TV, let alone interviewed. Like, I'm going to like puke or like crap my pants on live national TV talking about the election. Like, I knew Ron Paul, I knew all the information, but I was like, oh my gosh, like to be interviewed on TV, that's a huge deal. Well, it turns out my boss asked if they were to take me, and they said no, because I had never been on TV. So of course they weren't going to put me out to millions of people not knowing how I would do on TV. So it kind of hit me there like, hey, I need to practice some. I actually need to put some videos online because someday they may want to put me on TV, and like my boss could say, oh, hey, here's some videos of her talking about Ron Paul, libertarianism, whatever. So it was really just me kind of being like, okay, I'm going to practice interviewing on YouTube. And on YouTube, you definitely get some criticism, which I knew I needed. So I was like, okay, well, I'll interview myself about Rumball and put it on YouTube. So that's how that started. It was never me like thinking, oh, I'm going to start a channel, I'm going to upload all these videos. I was like, oh, I'll upload a few and, maybe it'll help my career a little bit.
So it's fair to say that you just kind of like did one and it did better than you thought it would do. So that kind of like convinced you to do more.
Yeah, I was on Twitter for a while, so I had some followers there, and I posted, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is cool. Do more of these." So I was like, "Okay, well, I might as well try and see where it goes."
Cool, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it at some of the other guys, give them a chance to ask some questions.
Yeah, I would say this little experiment in YouTube led all the way up to the culmination of your media career, which is now your OnlyFans page. And I think that a lot of people are very curious. We've heard, all of us, we were talking about it before the show. We've all heard
Yes.
different rumors about what's on there. So I've heard that you're reading the Constitution in your bikini.
Yeah.
I think that the fans would like to know more about this OnlyFans channel.
Yeah, so like I'm on there like in my bikini. I also show my feet on the recent one. So so let me explain this. Okay. So I had no idea what OnlyFans was, but I saw a bunch of memes about it. I was like, what are they talking about? And then I saw all these men's rights activists who were really, really mad about OnlyFans and posting these memes, all these horrors on these. I was like, what the heck? And I went on it, and like there's a bunch of like influencers selling their nudes and stuff to these men and charging money. And I was like, oh, okay. Hey, wouldn't it be funny if these women were like educating people, their fans, about something? So I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. Oh, what if I did an OnlyFans, but like I'm not going to be nude because that's not my style. But what if I did a total troll job on this? So no, I'm not going to tell you what's on there because I want you to pay the $5 a month. I think it's worth $5. A lot of people said they had no idea what this was, and they really are glad they signed up. So it's a total troll joke. It's a lighthearted thing. And yes, I am reading the Constitution, so it is educational. And right now, I'm in the top 15% of OnlyFans. Yes, you can congratulate me on that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. More people who don't know who I am.
Wait,
will
is that
subscribe and
is that
learn
top
about the
15% of
Constitution.
subscribers or
Of all people on OnlyFans, I'm in the top 15%.
Wow.
Nice.
Impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm just providing some wholesome educational content to OnlyFans.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That's a good promo.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty dumb. I fell for your April Fool's Day joke.
I fell for it 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, I've fallen for it, and I should do better.
I was like, okay, this is really different. So for those that didn't see it, Julie posted an April Fool's joke where she was selling breast milk.
Yes.
And I was kind of like, and I saw it in another group. Somebody
Yeah,
was
like
posting about
Kyle
it.
Kyle had the wallet out.
I did not have the wallet
He is
out.
actually a collector.
I was really worried about her. I was like, she must really need money. I mean, how much can this go for? Like, anyway, I feel like a dumbass now.
All right. Yeah, so I'm kind of a prankster.
Yeah, the tattoo got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best April Fool's pranks are something that might be believable, but still kind of a joke. And it's like, really? Is that so? Many libertarians are really bad at April Fool's jokes. And they're like, oh, I'm supporting Bernie Sanders, guys. Like,
Right.
oh, haha, funny. No, like nobody believes
It's
that.
the worst.
Yeah, Phil complains about that heavily every year.
I hate April Fool's Day so much because it's such a hack job. A bunch of people think they're funny, but for real, 2 years in a row, you've gotten me. So like, you're the best at it that I know.
We actually talked about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
We did. Yeah, like I was like, oh man, like I don't know, like my wife breastfeeds exclusively,
Awesome.
and she's kind of like so she was like an advocate of it, and I was just like, I don't know, like I don't mind other moms using it if they need it, but like selling it just seems weird. Like, how are you gonna sell it for your child? And, like we actually had this conversation on April Fool's, or shortly after April Fool's. So you got it.
So there was this girl, and no judgment, whatever, but she was selling her bath water online,
Oh yeah.
and that was a huge viral thing, and people were tweeting it, and it was a huge thing, so it got a lot of attention. And so for April Fool's Day, I'm a mother, I do breastfeed, so it's still believable. And to sell like my breast milk, I knew that may go viral, and people would be like, "What, WTF? Like, what the heck?" And I did it in a way that I'm kind of selling it to everyone. I'm not just selling it to moms. And of course, the majority of my fan base is male. I know that. So I just thought it'd be kind of funny. And yeah, as most people who knew me knew it was probably a joke, but then it went to like the other side of Twitter where they were, calling me a whore and stuff. And I was just having fun. Like, you just have to entertain yourself, especially during this quarantine, and have some fun. And hopefully it brought some laughs to people. But no, I'm not actually selling my breast milk.
Okay, so Julie, you just brought up that the majority of your fan base is male, and this kind of ties into Alexis Schlegel. He had a question. His question is, how can we make the liberty movement not so much of the sausage party that it is?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I get that question a lot. So I think there are a lot more libertarian women than people actually think, but I think libertarian women tend to be more in the background, just women in general. Like, every time I go to a libertarian convention or something, I'm usually invited by a woman who's like the event coordinator. So she's someone like behind the scenes, like being organized and doing all this stuff, where I think that the males are more likely to, like you guys, to start podcasts, or I'm kind of like a rarity and starting a YouTube channel. Like, they're more likely to be like in the forefront, men in general, where women kind of take the back seat role. So I think probably one way to do it is to help promote women who are making content, because I think women can relate more to other women, especially like now I'm trying to talk more about like motherhood stuff, so homeschooling stuff, which I'm highly considering. Things like that I think can get more women on board. So I think promoting women who are already making content would help that. I think in general, though, like the libertarian movement, there's just a lot of arguing about petty things that aren't necessarily realistic in the real world. And I think that kind of turns women off, where it's like, okay, we actually want to make changes like right now for my family, and not get so tied up on the, should we privatize police, or, the roads, or whatever, kind of that things that people get really emotional.
Kyle loves roads.
Yeah.
Do you think it's actually gotten better though over the years? Do you think there are more women involved, or do you think it's pretty much been about the same? I mean, I know that's a hard thing to judge, but what's your opinion on that?
Like I said, I've been involved since 2007, and I do think there's more women involved more than ever before. So I do think it's gotten better.
Awesome.
That's encouraging. Yeah, I was gonna say, you kind of a veteran to this. I can remember a meme where it's like, when you start off in libertarianism, you're like this fresh-faced, and this goes for most libertarians. Like, we start off with so much enthusiasm and energy, and after 10 years or 15 years, you kind of like, you get a little jaded. You get like, it's like, man, this is not an overnight fix like I thought it was gonna be. When I first got introduced and was going door knocking for Ron Paul, I was like, people are going to hear this guy and they're going to love him. And, this is a tremendous movement. I had a lot more youthful exuberance when I was younger. And now I'm like this grizzled old veteran that's just like skeptical of any kind of success. And I guess, have your political views changed at all in the last 10 years or 15 years since you became a libertarian?
I would say, like you, I was more excited and fresh-faced when I was 18 years old and talking about Ron Paul. Like you, I thought, oh, if I just showed them this YouTube video about Ron Paul with fancy music in the background, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the second coming or something. So yeah, I was more excited. And over the years, I changed my political views a lot. I was more radical, and then I became more lame. and I become more radical, more lame over the years. I don't know. I feel like becoming a mother has probably changed me a lot, where I'm more focused on local stuff. I'm more focused on the school systems. I'm more focused on like community, my neighborhood, like how can we make this better, as opposed to, oh, let's save this nation, let's save this world. Like I understand like you can't really do that as just one person, but you can make a huge impact locally. So I think more local involvement I'm more focused on, just because I became a mother. Also, I think over the years, I'll admit this, I've struggled mentally a lot being in the libertarian movement, because a lot of libertarian creators are just kind of fear mongering people. Like I know like there's been times when I was like, oh my gosh, hyperinflation's coming, I need to stock up on gold, I need to stock up on food, or World War III is coming because Trump said something to Iran, like that kind of thing. And seeing all these like libertarians who are kind of just like paranoid people really has hurt my mental health. So at times I've had to kind of check out of that and realize that you know it's not as bad as these people think. Like these people, no matter what, they're going to say the worst thing. They're going to say a Great Depression's coming, hyperinflation's coming. There's libertarians who say, the economic crisis is just around the corner, but they've been saying that for like a decade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've
Peter
had to
Schiff.
kind of check out. Okay, I'm not naming names here, but I've had to kind of check out at times, because I realized that, this isn't good for my mental health. So protecting my mental health has been really important to me lately, and just kind of focus more locally as opposed to, national politics.
Yeah, I went through a period early on in the move when I got into libertarianism of just complete fear, really panic, and I was like stockpiling canned goods and water and not so much guns, but I bought 2 guns. I really got sucked into it, and I was like, this thing is gonna crash tomorrow, and I was really afraid, and I fortunately matured a little bit and calmed down. I mean, days pass, the weeks pass, months pass, the economy doesn't collapse, we don't face the second Great Depression, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna live like this. But
Hmm.
there are people that do live like that. There are people that are, survivalists, that they're ready for the apocalypse, man, or they almost revel in chaos, the
Yeah,
market falling and things like that. So I'm glad
yeah.
I grew out of that phase. And one thing I've always liked about you is like you tend to be a voice of reason or a voice of moderation, right? So you
Hmm.
like a lot of times we get people, and I've noticed this like just throughout politics, like there's an extreme one side and an extreme other side, and we need to lock the economy down and shut down everything and arrest anybody that's seen outside their house, and then there's another side that's like we need to do nothing. And this is just like the flu, and you always kind of have a way of coming in on every issue in the middle, and just kind of being like, let's find a happy medium here. We don't need to be extreme in one way or the other. And I think libertarians in general kind of are good at taking that middle position, but that's something I've always appreciated about your videos and your voice. I know that's not really a question, but
No, but thank you. Like I've always tried to be a very diplomatic person, I'd say, and just in general, my whole life, I've always tried to have balance there. So I'm always like, okay, guys, like let's calm down. Let's look at the facts. Let's look,
yeah.
maybe the other side has some good points, which I know you're not supposed to say. And I feel like if I was somebody who just, wanted to throw out red meat to my followers, I'd probably have more followers now. But every time I kind of do the middle ground, people on both sides get mad at me. I lose followers. But you know what? Like, I'm voicing what I believe. If I didn't believe this, like, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I have to find a way to do that.
Yeah, Tommy Loren is one who's sort of an extremist. She's gonna get people all fired up, and a lot of people take advantage of that. I would say there are hysterics on both sides all the
Hmm.
time, and there are just very few voices of like, let's just stay calm. Let's think about this rationally. Um, but
So
so what? Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, Julie, I have a question. So you mentioned we should perhaps like promote more female like libertarian content creators. Are
Yeah.
there some that you would want to plug that you think need more attention, or with some that you enjoy?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a lot of
I
women
only
on
come up with good questions,
Twitter.
Julie.
Okay.
Go ahead, Julie.
There's a lot of women, there's a lot of females on Twitter, and they all have red hair. Have you guys noticed this?
Yes. Sherry voluntary.
I gotta dye my hair or something. I feel left out, guys. But yeah, there's a lot on Twitter who have red hair. I think I've made a list before about it, and I have to look at it.
Whatever happened to Marianne Copenhagen?
It's so true.
She was working for Rand Paul for a while. I don't know if she still is or not, but I guess that's why she had to take off her social media stuff.
She was, yeah.
Julie, are you familiar with Liberty Doll?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I've actually been on her channel before. Yeah, she's great. She does the gun videos.
She's actually coming on here soon. We don't have a date yet, but she's down, so that's cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So,
what do you?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I've been watching a lot of TV during this quarantine. Have you been watching anything good on TV?
Me and my husband are watching The Office for the first time.
Wow.
I used to not like The Office when I was in high school because I would watch just like random episodes on Comedy Central or whatever, and I didn't understand it because I thought it was, oh, this is boring, this is dull, but I didn't know the characters, right? So we started watching from the beginning, and now I like understand the characters, I get the dynamics there, so it's actually a pretty good show now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of The Office. We kind of like went through a phase, like we started watching some Office. My parents are actually doing the same thing. They're watching it from the beginning. And it's definitely it's a weird show in that it has no like laugh track or no like audience laughter or anything like that. It's very somber and quiet all the time. And yet they
It's kind of
find
one of the
ways to
first like American comedies to really do that.
It might be.
You know?
Yeah, it's got that weird feel to it that no other comedy has. And then anybody that's ever worked in an office environment can kind of relate to a lot of the things in that show. So, yeah, it's a great show. I've been watching Westworld, which is about artificial intelligence taking over. So that's
I
been
won't
good.
be able to do that. It's scaring me.
Julie, do you have any opinions on the current LP candidates at all? President, any of the positions really?
I haven't been paying that much attention to it. Is it Jacob Hornberger? Is that how you pronounce it? I think he's pretty good from what I've seen. It's always like when I say something, people will be like, well, what about this? What about that? I don't know. Like just generally, he seems like a pretty good candidate. He seems he's not crazy libertarian. He's not a conspiracy person. He's not like left libertarian. He seems to be pretty consistent.
He's probably the favorite around here of everybody that's in the running right now.
Yeah, another guy named Jim Gray just joined, which he joined super late, which a lot of times that doesn't go over well when people join that late. But I think that the more, I'll call them establishment libertarians, they're looking to hitch their wagon to him. So he'll probably end up giving Jacob Hornberger a run for his money. And then
along with Justin Amash.
If Justin Amash runs, obviously that would be a huge splash. I still don't know that it would be guaranteed to go to him. Like you can't just jump in at the last minute and having not run any kind of campaign at all and expect people to support you. And Justin has a lot of opposition. Like people don't realize the libertarian movement is very divided, or the party, excuse me, is very divided. Like they have some far left guys.
Divided too, dude.
The movement's divided too, but it's all over the place, And one guy is Vermin Supreme, who you might have heard of. He wears a giant boot on his head, and I mean that. Could he actually be the nominee? I don't know. That would be crazy to me if we ran a candidate that had a boot on his head, and he would.
I've heard he might be serious this time. Is that?
No.
He's as serious as
I've
a
heard
boot on
some
your head, you know.
I mean, I've heard some interviews that it makes it seem like he is kind of taking the principles more seriously. He's still coming at it from a very like parody, almost sarcastic viewpoint, but he does seem to, when he gets to talking about principles, he seems to sound like he's always sort of been against the establishment, against, the two-party system, all that. And it seems like he's like, oh, I finally found something that kind of makes sense as far as, as far as the principles go, as far as the platforms go, that sort of thing. But who knows? It could just be another performance art for him. Only he really knows that.
He's a comedian, or a satirist, or I don't know what you want to call him.
Yeah,
but
satirist. Yeah.
Yeah. I there's a lot for me. There's been a lot of soul searching on the right path forward for the libertarian movement, just as far as politics, and that's like there were some of in your group, the group guys. Some people wanted to ask about what you think about the GOP and the prospects for the GOP as far as a strategy for the Libertarian Party going forward. We haven't had much success in the GOP as of late, but neither has the Libertarian Party. So both paths are looking a little rocky to me.
Yeah, I get a lot of heat whenever I talk about this. At the end of the day, it's up to you how you want to do it. Like, you talk about division is like, well, if you want to join the Libertarian Party, go ahead. If you want to join the Republican Party, go ahead. If you want to join the Democratic Party, I don't know what you're thinking, but go ahead and see what you can do. Like, it's not, one strategy doesn't have to be like the only strategy to advance liberty. People get mad at me. They're like, why are you so like unserious about your videos? Well, you know what? Go make your own channel.
Yeah, right.
If you want to be serious. Like,
right.
Somebody may not like punk rock, so they may say, hey, you guys should make like a country music like podcast. No, you guys are the punk rock libertarians. Make your own freaking podcast.
Right.
So like
I've been telling Matt that for years.
I've said before, like, I am a registered Republican. I voted for Ron Paul. Like, I feel like, Justin Amash is, well, now he's not a Republican. I can't use that example anymore. But, Thomas Massey's a Republican. Like, I think you're probably more likely to get more success in the Republican Party. But that doesn't mean, like, I'm like, oh, no, don't join the Libertarian Party. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Like, I kind of see the Republican Party as being a more short-term goal to get people elected, where I see the Libertarian Party as perhaps more of a long-term, long game, more educational focused. And, you can have both, winning elections and education. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And as just one person, there's only so much you can do. So do whatever you think is the best way to advance liberty. Like for somebody says like, oh, you should run for office. No, I don't want to run for office. Like, I never want to run for office. I'm a bad candidate. So you go run for office. You go do what you want to do to advance liberty and stop telling people what to do.
That's a solid answer. Yeah, I agree with you. I had some thoughts that maybe the LP could just exclusively focus on national races. Some people have said the LP should just focus on local. I've actually come to think that you can't just jump right to the top. You kind of have to prove yourselves in office, starting at low offices, but at the same time, you can't give up on the presidential race, because that's what the country focuses on when we talk about politics. Everyone looks at your presidential candidate, and that becomes your voice. And presidential politics it's almost everything in this country. That's what people care about. Bernie Sanders is the leader of the Social Democrats, or whatever you want to call them. So it's just, and Bernie did incredibly well through the Democratic primary. He's created a lot of socialists, and I feel like we're losing our grip. I feel like we've lost. Having Trump in there takes away the opportunity to run a primary candidate in the Republican Party. And we don't have like a leader right now. We don't have any voice for liberty really at the top, because no one's running against Trump. So it's like, well, we have to wait 8 years before another opportunity to run a presidential candidate. But anyway, I'm just a little discouraged right now. The LP lost their ballot access in Maryland. So, and we can't go out and collect signatures because of the quarantine. So, and even given all that, libertarians, like the Republican Party gets their ass kicked in Maryland, let alone the libertarians. Like,
well, they do win the governorship every once in a while.
Yeah, but they won it with a very
with
progressive
basically
Republican.
Yeah, basically a Democrat.
Yeah. So
like a Clinton Democrat.
Anyway, yeah, just politically, it's been tough for me. I don't really know which way to turn without ballot access, and with Trump in office, I'm kind of treading water with politics right now. But yeah.
I feel you. I feel like Trump has done a number to the libertarian movement to divide us. Where, in 2015, as we were gearing up, like, there's a lot of people who liked Rand Paul, not all libertarians, but, I think like all libertarians would probably vote for Rand Paul if he had won the primary. They would have sucked up and voted for him. But now with Trump, like, there's such a divide between libertarians who hate Trump and then libertarians who are like, well, he's the best we could get despite, his crazy tweets and, attitudes. So there's such a divide. And every time I post something either negative or positive about Trump, because I do try to be fair to Trump, because I want him to go in the right direction. I get bashed from all libertarians from all different sides. So it's just, for me, it's like not even worth it to mention Trump at this point, because so many people have different opinions about him. And it's like, oh, if I say something positive, they're like, oh, I knew you were a Trump supporter, you shill, all this stuff. It's like, no, I like to applaud him when he releases drug offenders from prison. Like,
exactly,
keep doing that. But then when I post something negative about him, I get bashed. Oh, you're a liberal, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, he's a lightning rod for emotions. We've talked about that on the show. The Trump derangement syndrome goes both ways, right? There's his supporters and his opponents.
So I've got a question from the group. Okay, this comes from Tim Radmore. He says, "Why is it you just want old people to die?"
Yeah, that's me.
There was a second part to this question. He's also asking, what did you do with your Trump bucks?
Oh, so you're assuming I'm that poor, huh? Yeah, we got them. We make under that amount. Nothing yet. I think I'm just probably going to save it. Like, I'm a huge saver financial person. So there's nothing I'm going to rush out to buy. I think, hopefully this situation has proved to people like you do need to kind of save some money. I know I talked about like not being paranoid about things, but there has to be a happy medium. Like, there's people who live paycheck to paycheck, but they live in like these $400,000 houses and drive new cars. It's like, but you're living paycheck to paycheck. Like, if somebody were to get sick or something were to happen to you, you would be screwed like you are now, having to go to like food banks. And I know not everyone can do it, but like, I think we need to kind of be more responsible. The government is so irresponsible with their money, but even so are people. They're spending like crazy, and then this whole thing happens and they can't 2 weeks and they're on the street starving. It's like, okay guys, like, let's have a backup plan here.
So I have another question for you from our group, and Tim Miller asks, what's your opinion on the idea of the digital dollar being proposed in Congress?
I saw a little bit about that. I mean, it is scary because they could just add a bunch of zeros on a computer, but I mean,
isn't that kind of what they already do though?
Yeah, so I'd say, like, don't they already do that? Like, I know like technology and AI and all this stuff and the robots, like, that's like more scary, but at the end of the day, they can just print as much money as they want. So adding a bunch of zeros, they're doing the same thing. So it sounds scary, but I don't know if it's that much different than the current situation.
Yeah, the vast majority of our money supply is already digital, so I don't understand what would be different.
Well, here's one thing that would be different. Like, if you just went down to like a digital currency, right? It's like, how does somebody buy weed?
Oh, that's a good point. No, like, seriously.
I don't know.
Currency.
Well, I'm just saying, like, how would you do that with a digital currency if there was no more cash? Like how would
Well,
somebody
it's
buy
you can
weed?
buy, dude. Have you heard of the dark web? I mean, people buy drugs all the time with no
You
cash.
can
They buy with
Well,
barter.
yeah, but I mean, I guess it's more of like a pain in the ass than just being able to use cash to buy a bag from your buddy down the street. You know,
Yeah, it would be because like you could
it
Venmo
would
them, but
it would
then
be
there's a
trackable.
record.
Exactly.
It'd be yeah,
Yeah.
and then that guy
Yeah.
gets
you're just buying
busted,
a
and
lot
they
of
go,
tacos.
let me see every cash transaction you've made in
Yeah.
the last 6 months, and then you got all his customers. So, yeah, it would be a problem for the black markets. They would have to come up with some alternative for exchange.
There might
Sexual
actually be an
favors, Matt. Have you considered that? A blowjob's not traceable.
Kyle.
Unless you have to get the blowjob permit, man.
Oh, yikes.
Okay. I got another question I came up with. So how would, if you were the governor, how of say Maryland or any of these states, how would you have handled this corona situation?
Probably really badly because I feel like governors are kind of like between a rock and a hard place with this thing because there are people who want the economy to open, and I completely understand that. But then there's people like on social media, you see everyone saying lock the state down, lock the state down. Like Larry Hogan, every time he would post something like, "Oh, I asked Marylanders to stay home," there would be a bunch of comments like, "Lock down the state. What are you doing?" So it's like, he has to like try to please everyone, and you can't please everyone. So I think I would be like, "Oh, freaking, I don't know." I would immediately resign because you can't make everyone happy. Like it's such a pain. Now I would start to slowly open the economy. Hopefully people will take responsibility for themselves. Like I think wearing masks is a great idea. I don't think it should be enforced by the government, but hopefully just everyone wears masks, like social distancing, but we can still open the economy because coronavirus, while it's still serious, it has not been as bad as they were predicting at all. The hospitals are underwhelmed in most places, like
Well, but I
severely
mean, who's to say
underwhelmed.
if it's not been as bad because they've closed things down and they've managed to flatten the curve?
Well, that was
But
already that was already
flat are we
in the
gonna?
projection.
How flat does this curve need to be? Like,
I mean, well, I guess the idea was if you had things going as usual, you'd have a lot
mhm,
more people sick and you would overrun the hospitals.
yeah,
So, and that could
Well,
be
you're
pretty
talking about from
scary.
here on out. You're saying, okay,
yeah.
we've
From
we've
here
done
on
what we
out,
need
I
to
mean,
do.
like, okay, the curve's been flattened enough. Like the hospitals are okay. Like we can start to like slowly open up things, and
Well, I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess the danger is
say
if it
you
just
start to
yeah.
open it up, and then
yeah,
like,
Shit goes well.
a month from now, it's like fucking
yeah.
red dawn. It's like it's total chaos.
It is
Red
that
Dawn.
everyone's going to blame you. So I feel like governors have like an incentive to be extra cautious because they don't want to be blamed,
Right.
right? If things go to hell, they're going to be blamed. But if like things are okay, people are going to be like, "Oh, you saved us," even though we don't know if they saved us or not because you can't go back in time. So I feel like governors just want to play extra safe, but at the same time it's coming to the point where the unemployment, people needing food, like that's becoming a bigger issue, I feel like, than the coronavirus.
Yeah, you're starting.
Earlier,
Oh, go
earlier, I
ahead.
was actually arguing with some libertarians, and a libertarian. Everybody knows this guy's name, but I don't want to
Alexis.
call him out on the podcast. But at any rate, she was just saying it was like stupid to wear a mask, and I'm just like, no, common sense dictates that if you wear a mask and if you cough into a mask, rather than just coughing into the air, you're less likely to give somebody whatever you have, right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I've been arguing this on Twitter, like, guys, it's a good idea to wear a mask, and people are like, "Oh, you're listening to the government." It's like, well, like 2 weeks ago they were saying don't wear a mask. Like, I don't care what they say, wearing a mask is a good idea.
yeah.
If they say, well,
Yeah,
it doesn't protect me to wear a mask, well, it protects other people. So like being so stubborn against it, like you're feeding into this libertarian stereotype that we
Right.
Yeah,
don't
like
care about other people.
yeah, like I feel like if I think it's a good idea that if we were to reopen the economy, it would be a good idea to do it with everybody wearing masks, and
Hmm.
then I think that would that's got to like stop the spread of it somewhat.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, and it's probably a better way to go about it. but it just seems like so many people are just like they just like think the whole like coronavirus thing is some like Alex Jones conspiracy, you know, but or like a CNN conspiracy or something. It's they just don't believe that that it's dangerous at all.
Well, yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's just the assumption that anything the government says is always wrong, which yeah, I mean the government is wrong about a lot of things, but
Hmm.
you know, there are occasions where they might agree with the right experts, you know, and you know, they might still use it to expand their power, expand their authority, all that stuff, but that doesn't make the reality any different than what it is. And you know, from what we've seen from you know a variety of different experts, you know, ranging from you know Fauci, who I know a lot of people hate him now, but
Isn't it Fauci
or whatever, maybe.
or
Um,
Fauci? I don't know.
I don't watch the news, so I just read that shit in print. But you know, even aside from him, there's you know just all down the line. You know, it the recommendation is you know social distancing, wear your mask.
Mm.
Okay. I mean, now do they have the authority to make economic decisions? No. I mean, that's a whole nother matter. But you know, my point is just like just because the government decides to agree with some expert on something doesn't necessarily make that expert or a pool of experts wrong just because the government has decided that they want to do so. So
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Julie, I have another question for you. So have you read into like some people are saying right now that this virus escaped from a lab in Wuhan and didn't come from the market in Wuhan? Have you read into that at all? Do you have an opinion on it?
I've seen some of that, but everyone who posts that, I don't trust them on my Facebook feed. So I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of damaging right now to spread those rumors. I worry about like the anti-China, like, oh, let's nuke them, let's go to war with them, that type of thing. Um, I worry about that anti-China mentality, so I try not to like spread rumors that are not, um, you know, confirmed at this point. I think it really has changed my mind about trade with China. I'm kind of worried about that more than I was before. Like when Trump would talk about trade with China, I'd be like, you know, what are you talking about? But you know, they make a ton of our medicine, a ton of our antibiotics,
Our
and it's
masks.
just yeah,
Yeah.
like it is scary to me now, like that China is all, you know, state owned. They could just pull the plug on our medicines, and that's scary to me. Like, yes, I support free trade. Yes, I understand the point of trade. You know, it's good for peace, it's good for cooperation, but we have this evil Chinese empire who is just who could just really hurt us badly if they wanted to. So that has really kind of changed my mind about trade with China. So I wonder in the end if this coronavirus thing is actually going to be in Trump's favor because of the whole trade thing, because of immigration, borders things, if he's going to play it in his own hands.
Yeah, it's going to play into all protectionist hands. You know, like
Mhm.
Yeah, everybody's going to try to use it for whatever they can
around
use it for.
yeah, around the world, I think you're going to see a move toward less globalism, less global trade,
I
and
think so
more.
too.
Okay, let's make sure we're self-reliant here, and we don't. You know, you could see borders more likely to be closed. I mean, we're already seeing restriction of travel just between states in the United States. Everybody's kind of
Insane.
closing up. And my concern, you know, I don't think the coronavirus is going to go away. I think that this is just part of our existence now, and that at some point we need to get on with our lives and
Hmm.
figure out how to deal with it. Because, like, I don't think there's going to be a point where we're like, oh, we beat it, it's gone. You know,
Yeah.
like this may be our new flu. This may be just a new thing that you might catch.
sure.
So, you know, how do you deal with that? How do you go forward? Do we
Yeah.
stay in our houses forever? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
I think the initial reaction was just to basically stop it from just overloading the healthcare system. But yeah, I mean, once we've gotten over that point, which it seems like we're getting there, you know, yeah, I mean, there's a potential that this could be a recurring thing, just like the flu, in addition to the flu, and clearly we can't shut down forever, you know. So
Yeah, you're starting to see pushback. I mean, there was a protest in Maryland yesterday People went down to Annapolis. I understand they stayed in their cars and like drove around or something like that. I don't know. That's what I heard. But you know, a lot of
Yeah,
people are
they
like,
went to the
okay.
Capitol. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, did you go, Phil? Did you hear about it?
No, no. David Dahl went, and there was a protester that showed up. She was a counter protester, and so she just stood outside on the sidewalk with a sign that said "Go home." she was, it's like, it's a very ironic protest. It's like, yeah, like who? Wait, what? Why? Like it doesn't make sense.
Where
It
did
was
this
funny.
whole
She had a mask on, so people were like, well, at least she was social distancing, and she had a mask on, so she was in the right to protest. Like,
But
yeah,
everybody
but
in the
it's just
protest
very
was in their
ironic.
vehicles, right? As I understand it.
Yeah, everyone was mostly in their vehicles. Yeah, there was like a handful of people that were walking around, but mostly everyone was on their vehicles. And of course, the police shut off access to drive right in front of the state house or whatever. And so they were directing traffic and moving people away. But it was like several hundred cars showed up to protest.
was her name
Thankfully,
Karen,
like it
Phil?
mostly turned into a Trump rally. It might have been.
I don't know where that meme
Why
come.
is that so
Yeah,
political?
What'd you say, Julie?
I know. I hate that
I hate
too.
that they
It's
do
like
the
it has
Trump
turned
thing
into it.
because anti-Trump people are gonna be like, oh, they're just Trump people. Like they have a good point. Like they want to go back to work, and I'm glad they stayed in their cars, like to be responsible about
Right.
it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the framing
it
of
just
it
it
is
sucks because like it was mostly a Trump thing though.
Oh, it was.
No, I'm saying it was like there was a lot of more Trump fans. Yeah, there's a lot like Trump flags than one would expect. But and I hate how it has to turn into it. It's like I'll agree with a leftist on a certain point and be like, oh yeah, I totally agree with that, and I'll agree with this. There, I guess now because it's like a lot of Trump supporters are going after this for the reopen Maryland movement.
Yeah, bringing your
And
Trump flags
it
is not the
sucks
way to
'cause,
go.
like everyone just thinks all I want to do is it's like you said, all they think is I just want people to die. I know. I just want people to get back to work. I see so many industries or so many businesses that are just they'll never recover from this. And my life's changed, and most everyone else's too. I mean, but I'm fortunate enough I still have a job and I can still pay my bills right now. But there's so many people that can't, and they just want to get back to work. They're willing to risk their health, but everyone's like, well, yeah, but you're risking other people's health, and it's other people you need to protect. Everyone else. But it's like I mean, everyone takes risk every day, and I know that's overstated right now by my side of the argument, but it's true. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's like we need to. There just has to be a certain point where we're like, you know what, this is enough. Like, enough. I don't care what police say. I don't care. Like, I wear a mask every day at work because I have to, and I don't know, like it's causing like this huge red mark here on my skin, on my nose, and like my daughter came up to me. She's like 2, or she's 3, and she came up to me, she's like, Daddy, you have color on your nose. You have color on your nose.
Hey,
And she's
Phil,
like
maybe
pointing
you
at it,
should,
and it's like it's sore and it hurts.
Phil, maybe you should try some Vagisil.
What?
God damn.
Shut up. But it's like, so like hypothetically, if my mask is giving me and it gets me like an infection, like a skin infection on my nose, I have to go to the hospital. I go to the hospital and I pick up coronavirus. Like that's not something I want to run into. And it's just I don't know. Like I wish there was some type of happy medium, and I think it is gonna come. There's gonna be a day soon where people just says enough's enough. I'm going to work. I'm gonna open up my church. I'm gonna open up my restaurant, and I'll be damned. I'll fight these fines. I'll fight whatever police come in here and try to shut me down. I'll fight it because I can't keep going like this.
Yeah,
I mean, my
there-
mental
I
health.
mean,
I felt like the other day.
It might not be so smart to open up your church. I mean, wasn't there that one pastor who like defiantly spoke like when people told him not to, he still had church services, and then he died a couple weeks later from the coronavirus?
Yeah,
I mean, it might not be smart to open up your church, dude. And it's like my parents are in their like mid to late 60s, and I don't want them like going to church where people are like belting out hymns and spitting particles all over the place. I mean, I worry for them.
I know. I mean, my father's
Spittle hymns.
had
I don't think there should be a
recovering
law
from
closing
cancer.
down churches, but I feel like churches should do the responsible thing and just hold like internet services.
Yeah. Or they can have services where like only they fill every other pew has someone on each end. They have limited services or limited people you reserve for Like, I mean, they can open up in that way. Like, they can devise a plan themselves to keep everyone safe, to keep, social distance, whatever. But it does, let companies and let people take that responsibility. And I know you say, oh, well, some people are just irresponsible, they need to be controlled.
No, I
But
wouldn't say that.
I mean, they sell people short. I know, but people do say that, and they sell people short. I know there's churches. Like, I was just thinking about it. I was driving past my church at the end of my street. I'm like, well, why can't there be people at either pew, like, say, like a family of four on either end of each other pew, and it kind of goes back and forth. Everyone has to wear masks to attend service. They they bring, they can maybe bring, I don't know, like, I'm Catholic, so like if they bring the Eucharist to you, you know what I mean, as opposed to everyone getting up and standing in a line, and then everyone leaves church and they just have like a continuous amount of services, like a shortened service or something like that, because this is serious. People are not getting the sacrament. It's
Yeah,
like,
but to play a little bit of
something. It
status
may not mean that
advocate,
much
Phil.
to me, but that means something to other people.
But to play a little bit of status advocate, Phil. So like in Florida, they said like, okay, the beaches are open, and they said like, okay, you can't sunbathe, but you can ride your bike on the beach, or you can I think you can go surfing. And then they show pictures, and it's just people, like swarms of people, like not practicing social distance, not doing anything like that, So, and I'm playing status advocate here, but this is what happens if like
okay, but
go ahead.
But that logic breeds the mentality of, well, we need it. Some people just need to be controlled, like they need to be dictated to, and they need to be controlled. And I'm not saying like, of course I agree. There's some certain people that clearly, like, they're not fit, murderers, rapists. Yeah, those type of people need to be out of society. But like, people are going to the beach, and yeah, you're right. The people shouldn't be crowding up. I wouldn't do that. I know.
Yeah,
it's just it's a weird stretch. I think that might be an isolated incident
of like public
yeah.
beaches, right? Because in Ancapistan, all the beaches are
True.
privately owned, so you could say like, right? So you could be like, hey, I want to keep my beaches safe. So if I see you, whatever. And then,
well, I mean, okay. Well, I mean, okay. So one could also make the argument, if the beaches were privately run, the private owner might want to make more money and might admit more people into the beach that are safe. So it's not like anybody has this like, perfect answer. And, like, I think Phil's argument for like, oh, we need to open shit up. I think that makes the call for we need states to control people, because it's like, when you talk about like opening church back up again next week, or like for Easter, you're just begging for the government to come in, because it's like it's a dumb fucking idea.
But it's dumb to you. There's some people that's their holiday. That's the most cherished holiday in the Catholic Church. Like, that matters to people, and that's also, you talk about people's mental health. Like, it's already starting to get to me where it's like,
yeah, but dude, look at how many old people attend church.
I can't sit down. Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, those people need to start knowing, because this what goes back to me is, we have been led and taught from cradle to grave, for the past few generations, that government is the answer for everything, and that's what you saw. These kids that go to spring break, when said, hey, look, we were recommending don't go to these beaches. They were their mentality. I know it, man. I heard it from them. They said, well, if this was serious enough, government would not let us go. And so that's why they went, because they were like, well, government will tell us not to do something. That should be our line,
well,
our red line, our line in the sand.
That's the thing.
I think if you keep getting, people aren't that really responsible for their own actions, because they're just like, well, I'll wait till government tells me I can't. I'll wait till there's a law. Right. That's how people think these days. And I think that's why, everyone talks about Ralph Bard's button. I don't know if I'd push Ralph Bard's button, because I think it took us a generation or several generations to get out of this mindset of personal liberty and personal responsibility now, where everyone's just like, oh, well, I'll just wait for a government solution. I think, if you press that button, people are still going to clamor for government. And I don't think I'd press it. I know that's a whole nother topip, but Julie, I think people need to start taking account for their actions.
Julie, what are your thoughts on this argument we just had?
Sorry,
a
I
lot of
ramble.
people say that there are going to be bad apples no matter what you do, right?
Yeah.
But the governors were at first asking people, please stay home, please stay home. And then we saw the spring break pictures. But I feel like most people were already staying home.
Mhm.
Like what goes viral on social media is the spring breakers, is like, and they were doing some awful things with their
Yes.
butts on the beach. Okay. So that kind of stuff goes viral because people are like, oh my gosh, this is so disgusting. Retweet, retweet, retweet. But we don't see that the majority of people were staying home. So that just bugs me that we have to have this lockdown because of these bad apples who
Right.
were the minority of people. Like even the CDC estimates, they had, oh, maybe 50% of people are going to obey by social distancing. I think it was more than 50%. At least I saw from my people, my family, like we were all, social distancing. And it was these bad apples who made us into the lockdown. And I think these people were taking that risk because there wasn't the lockdown. Because, yeah, I agree, there was kind of a training here. Well, it's not that bad because government doesn't say so. It's just
Right.
like with like drugs, a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to do this drug because the government says it's illegal. Well, if government were to say this is legal, oh, does that mean it's fine? I've heard a lot of statists make that argument, and I think there maybe is something there because we have been so conditioned. Oh, the government says what's right and what's wrong, that if they let me do these drugs, then okay, this isn't that bad for me, right? To take this meth or whatever. So yeah, there is something there.
Libertarians believe in personal responsibility, right? So isn't it up to people if they want to take the risk to go to church or go to the beach to let them do that? I mean, how parental should the government really be? And I would, if it was up to me, I would reopen things with the qualification that everybody needs to take precautions. Like when I go to Lowe's now, they have a glass shield in front of the cashiers,
Yeah.
and a lot of things are no touch. Or like the Lowe's is like counting people that come in. They only have so many people in the store at one time. And I go stand in line at a restaurant to order carryout, and they have tape on the floors marking off 6 feet so that people stay 6 feet apart, and
Yeah. I
everybody
mean,
in line has masks.
I think
So you can,
there's enough social pressure to accomplish this
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hear about, the people that are wildly like just flagrant about like this, not going along with this whole thing. I mean, they get pretty much trashed. So it's like we
Mm-hmm.
could accomplish this without any sort of government force at all. The problem is like you said, we've been conditioned to need the government to tell us to do shit, and it just highlights just the flaw. I mean, it really comes down to education, right? I mean, it goes deep, right? It goes to childhood education, all that kind of stuff, where it's like, you're just trained to listen to authority. So if authority does not tell you to do something, you just assume that you shouldn't be doing it, And then now it's sort of the inverse, where it's like, as libertarians, we hear like the government's saying to do something, so we automatically, as we should, we automatically assume that it's the wrong thing to be doing. Now I'm not talking about like forcefully shuttering anything. Like I don't believe in government force at all. I'm just talking about should we ought to be voluntarily shuttering our stuff as needed, and I think that's a good idea. I think it is irresponsible to open up a church right now, but should a church pastor go to jail for opening a church? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. So it just gets real complicated when we live in this sort of fabricated reality that's just created by government indoctrination from the bottom, and now it's like, what the fuck do we do? It just makes everything super crazy. It's hard to make heads or tail of everything.
Yeah, so we're running out of time here. I'm going to give Julie a second to do any plugs that she would like to do. Like, Julie, where can people find you?
People can find me at onlyfans.com/Julie Borowski.
Okay. Yes.
and Liberty Junkies
Oh yeah, I have a website. I sell shirts, mugs, all this kind of stuff. LibertyJunkies.com, and I hope it's not that terrible of stuff.
Oh.
And you wrote a children's book
Yes.
called.
Yeah,
Nobody
where can we get that book?
Nobody knows how to make a pizza. It's modeled on iPencil, and you can get it on Amazon.
Nice.
Nice.
I meant to mention that at the beginning. That's my fault, Julie. So hopefully the
It's
listeners
okay.
stayed on and heard the plugs at the end.
Yeah. So, and also tomorrow night we're going to have 420 special. And I know you guys are asking yourselves, but Matt Bergman, you celebrate 420 every podcast. How will this be different? And to that, I have no answer. But tomorrow night we've got some newcomers coming to the podcast. We've got G.I. Mary Jane coming on. We've also got James Babbs coming on, and our special guest is going to be Cop Block co-founder Ademo Freeman. So he's kind of been laying low, and he's going to just he told me when I hit him up about this, he's like, "Yeah, we can talk about anything. My life's an open book." So this should be a fun time. Also, if you we're about to head on over to the Patreon, so if you hit us up at patreon.com/punk rock libertarians for a minimum of $1 per month, you'll gain access to our after hours program. We also this podcast is brought to you in part by Conversations About Freedom podcast with host Moral Bob. So check those guys out. And we also have t-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you type in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you'll receive a 10% discount. Until next time, live free
or die.